Excuse me, sir, I have a question. So I saw on the bus it said, and I see the sign that says fares required. I thought the buses were supposed to be free now because, Mamdani just won.
That's funny. That's a good one.
When does that start?
That's never going to stop.
Never going to happen?
That was fucking
all right, well, I want to say I appreciate what you do, my guy.
funny.
All right, have a good one, my guy. Listen, you are the heart and soul, the backbone of New York. Stay safe.
I don't care if you come off for free. I got you.
W man, thank you, bro. Have a good one.
I've been doing free buses before, Mamdani. I'm the man.
Yes, sir. All right, you got to run for the next election. I'll vote for you. Have a good one.
Well, as we predicted, it is starting. We talked about it even before the election, but it now appears that those tensions are beginning to build between New York's newly elected mayor, Zohran Mamdani, and the New York State Governor, Kathy Hochul. As we tried to tell you, despite the fact that they were buddy-buddy on the campaign trail, Kathy Hochul endorsed Zohran. She wanted to ride off of the progressive energy. They're hugging each other, holding hands at campaign rallies and all this stuff. That actually, behind the curtain, there's a lot more problems between these two than you might think. And a big part of that contention, besides the just simple divide of establishment Democrat versus progressive Democrat, is this issue of how exactly is Mamdani going to pay for his Looney Tunes campaign promises. One example we constantly brought up was the issue of free buses. Mamdani was claiming he'll pay for the free buses by raising the New York State income tax. Well, the problem is, as the mayor of New York, he has no feasible way to do that. But moreover, Kathy Hochul is publicly running her re-election campaign on the slogan of no new taxes. After all, her job is not just to win New York City. She has to win Long Island, Hudson Valley, upstate, all of those places. And considering she's already a pretty unpopular incumbent governor, probably the worst thing you could do as a politician, it's kind of common sense, right? Don't run on the proposal that you're actually going to raise those taxes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today, that very question came up in a Kathy Hochul press conference, and they basically asked her, how exactly are you going to pay for the free buses? Zohran promised this to everyone, and not only did she double down on, again, I'm not going to raise taxes, but furthermore stated, and I quote, I cannot set forth a plan right now that takes money out of a system that relies on the fares of the buses and the subway. So in other words, the governor is saying, Mamdani, all of you voters that I endorsed for some odd reason, as if that was going to save my career, right? You all got scammed, voters. You're not getting what you were promised. And Mamdani is a Looney Tunes freaking idiot, right? And it's just hilarious to witness. And already in response, you are seeing behind the scenes, right, as we speculated could be the case, a lot of the kind of socialist and progressive Mamdani supporters are now trying to threaten a primary challenge against Hochul, because this is essentially what they're going to be able to do. Once Mamdani finds out, oh, I can't fulfill anything I promise and I just con the voters, how about instead of taking accountability, I can blame Kathy Hochul, right? Kathy's the one standing in the way. Let's launch those campaign promises. Now, on the other hand, or the primaries, I should say. Now, on the other hand, I think there's another question of, well, what if Mamdani launches those primary challenges and then he fails and Kathy Hochul still wins re-election? Then he's certainly not getting what he promised. So we did also speculate that maybe it's a possibility Mamdani in the end backs down because Hochul endorsed him on the campaign trail. That's going to be something interesting to watch. But certainly there is a big chunk of his support base that wants to see this happen. And Kathy, what can we say? You did this to yourself. And also Mamdani voters, you did this to yourself. Because Kathy was even telling you before he won the election, we're not going to be able to fund free buses. And I refused to raise the taxes. But people still said, Mamdani's our guy. He's going to do what he promised. Okay, but we'll tell you about this, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's the best way to support our work. I greatly appreciate it. It also ensures that you can stay up to date, right? It doesn't sign you up for anything or none of that nonsense. So just hit that red button. And with that said, okay, I want you to take a listen here to this question in Kathy Hochul's press conference today. Can you pay for the free buses? And then they try to grill her on, wait a minute, all of the Zohran supporters are essentially threatening you over and trying to force you to raise the taxes. What are you going to do about it? And Kathy Hochul, in typical Kathy Hochul fashion, basically stumbles over the answer. But I do want you to hear what she said in response. So let's check it out.
Well, like I said, I'm from Buffalo. We don't put up with a lot of crap. So I just want to set the stage that, you look at the history of people who've run multi-million-dollar ad campaigns to try and get me to change my position. I don't change my position. So I just want to put it out there. I respect people's opinions. I respect the proper place to convey them. And so I've said to people, I hear you. And that was important. But also, there is a time and place. And so that's all on that. No, I've had.
Wait a minute. That was a pretty strong statement, right? She says, all the people, aka the Soros Network and the progressives, trying to run ad campaigns against me right now, I'm not going to cave. I'm not changing my position on no new taxes. Now, part of me respects that in terms of, oh, I'm not caving to the mob. But at the same time, you did cave to the mob, Kathy. Why did you endorse Zohran Mamdani then? Like, was that not just the dumbest move ever, if that's the case? If you're not going to... Okay, the guy was entirely running on a platform that was contradictory to your own platform. And now this is going to be a constant question. And by the way, okay, even if you run on no new taxes, you're not going to be able to run from the fact that you still endorse Zohran Mamdani. So all of the New Yorkers who are against Mamdani, which is about 50% of New York City, and presumably more than 50% of the rest of the state, good job. You're already an unpopular incumbent governor, and then you just created this whole problem for yourself. Okay, so, it's kind of a double-edged sword. But, of course, that's the problem she created for herself, right? Why'd you go to the rally then? What did you expect to happen? You didn't think they're going to boo you? You didn't think they were going to chant tax the rich? Okay, you thought you could appease these people. That's hilarious, yeah.
Conversations on this trip, but many conversations, I'd say over the summer and the fall, that were important, that led to an understanding of what's in the realm of possibility, shared ambitions, but what is doable is the question. And so, no, we're aligned on so many of these issues. I've made it clear where I have strong disagreements with issues that really do not pertain to, the governance of New York City. I've said you need to get a police commissioner that people trust, who has a record of accomplishment to keep the trajectory that we're on right now, which is crime is going down. Crime is going down significantly. You don't say mission accomplished, but that is a great trend. So.
Yeah, well, good luck with crime going down with the next mayor. I'm pretty sure that trend's going to reverse. But
him agreeing with that assessment, that recommendation to keep Jessica Tisch, was an important statement on many fronts. So I'm looking forward to, having our teams could keep a lot of conversations with our teams. We said we'd be talking, I'm meeting him very soon to talk about our response if there is a surge of ICE agents and National Guard that do come, perhaps after his inauguration, and how we can be proactive in preventing that from happening. And that's the state I'm in right now, prevent that from happening. So we've had a lot of conversations. So no, I think there's a mutual respect, and that's gonna, I think, only grow deeper.
Yeah. So in other words, let me translate that. No free buses, and largely speaking, no free stuff as a whole. Good job, Mamdani voters. You're just so smart. You really understand politics and how things work. You're definitely not just some idiot who heard, oh, the unicorns are gonna come. Oh, wow, I'll vote for the unicorns. Okay. But I hope you at least have a perhaps epiphany when the one thing that Zohran can actually affect, which is crime policy, maybe hands over the city to, we will say, the antisocial of the world. Okay, but that said, apparently, furthermore, in this press conference, Kathy Hochul went on to say she wants to phase in universal childcare. So remember, Mamdani says universal childcare. Hochul actually agrees with that in principle, but says, we don't really have the money for this. I don't know if that's going to work. So she said she wants to phase it in, but it'll cost $15 billion statewide. So she's looking to phase it in first with certain age groups and geographically underserved communities. So I'm assuming, that's going to go to more minorities and poor people and all this stuff. But at the same time, right, geographically underserved, does that mean New York City's not going to get the childcare? That'd be so fun. That would be hilarious, right? Give it to Buffalo, give it to Albany, Long Island, but New York City doesn't get the childcare. But anyways, says that this all comes in the face of federal cuts and existing costs, i.e. Medicaid. So yeah, she's basically saying New York State doesn't have the money for that either, right? He went on to promise that New York City is still a capitalist city and has spent time talking to the business community. Well, we'll see how long that lasts, right? I'm not exactly sure the business community either way is going to want to stay, because you just see people who are just like, I don't want to live with this mayor, right? There's already a million reasons to leave. There's already been a mass migration. That's, by the way, why Kathy's running on the campaign of no new taxes, because she understands we need to stop the out-migration from the state. But Mamdani simply winning the election, all right, has already been, as we've talked about, right, enough of an incentive for people to just say, screw this, right? Because you've dealt with everything you have for the past 10 years. It's not like it's anything new. And then if you're on the fence, probably everyone was already thinking of leaving. And then, well, here's what happens, right? Adds that Zohran Mamdani needs to do more to convince the Jewish community he's on their side. Why is that? Because, a lot of the Jewish community, guess what, have the money, right? They're the ones who are in the business community and all this stuff, in the finance, paying a lot of the taxes. And they don't like you for obvious reasons, so they're freaking leaving. Good job. But, so I'm going to drive away my entire tax base, and then we're going to tax the rich to pay for the buses. Who do you think in a even theoretical situation will get taxed? When the 1% leaves, they're going to have to get the taxes from someone. So guess what, 99%? It's coming for you as well. But that said, when asked if Mamdani will keep the New York police commissioner, Hochul says she wouldn't keep harping on it if she didn't think the police commissioner herself was interested in keeping the job. We'll obviously see what happens there. But again, on this free bus question, I want to repeat to people that Mamdani's only freaking answer to this has been to raise the state income tax. So this is a core campaign promise of his, days within the election being over, that already being basically shot down.
She hasn't endorsed all your funding plans yet.
No, but she has said that this is of immense importance to her. And what I've said time and again is the funding plans I've put forward are the ones I think are most straightforward and direct. And also, if there's another means by which to raise the funding, the most important thing is that we actually fund this thing.
Yeah, well, what did Kathy say pretty explicitly today? Not only that she's not going to raise taxes, there is no plan she could feasibly find other means of funding the free buses. So in other words, it's already over before it began, right? No free buses. As even the bus driver in the beginning video that we showed you, even he knows, right? It's like, this is not going to freaking happen. There's absolutely no way they can pay for it. Cuckoo, cuckoo. A great job to the voters there. Now, that said, even on this question of ICE, right? Because that's kind of basically Mamdani's two main components. First of all, he's going to radically fight Trump, and then secondly, he's going to have the free stuff. Well, the free stuff is obviously not feasible, and that's been shot down. But even recently on the question of ICE itself, what did Mamdani say? Eric Adams is a failed mayor. Oh, the Democrats are not fighting hard enough. We're going to do more. What exactly we're going to do? I don't know. He's made these threats. He's going to arrest the ICE agents or something, but where is his jurisdiction? Well, recently he said, and I quote, "My NYPD will continue to not be assistance to ICE whenever they're trying to terrorize New Yorkers, and I think it's important to bring an end to civil immigration enforcement." But notice where he doesn't actually provide a solution as to how he's going to change a single policy. You got scammed, guys, but take a listen.
Tish received a heads up from ICE that raid would occur on Canal Street. Now, apparently she did give the Adams administration a heads up. If you were in his shoes, how would you have reacted to this? Would you have said, yes, NYPD officers do not interfere with ICE, but how would you have acted as mayor?
What I will continue to do is be someone who will stand up for New Yorkers when Donald Trump is seeking to fulfill his promise to create the single largest deportation force in American history. And my NYPD will continue to not be of assistance to ICE whenever they are trying to terrorize New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs.
Did she act in the right way?
I think that it's important to continue a separation between NYPD and ICE, and I think it's important to bring an end to a chapter which Eric Adams said on national TV where he opened the door to civil immigration enforcement.
Okay, wait, hold on a minute. Despite all the revolutionary pro-illegal alien rhetoric that he spewed on the campaign trail, notice what he's saying. I will continue to let the NYPD not cooperate with ICE. Why is he bringing all that up? And what did he say about Eric Adams? It's worth noting that New York City is already a sanctuary city. In other words, they're already a place where the NYPD are legally not allowed to cooperate with the immigration agents. Now, that said, it is true that Mayor Eric Adams, because he basically got red-pilled in a sense on the issue of immigration once Biden sent a bunch of migrants to his city, did say verbally he wanted to repeal the sanctuary city law. That's true. But the city council didn't bite on it. Which means, in other words, really, the actual law of New York City and the actual practices did not change. So in other words, after running as the big revolutionary, what is he saying now on ice? He's just going to continue the status quo. Great job. Okay, great job. We're voting for change. Eric Adams is surrendering to Trump. Blah, blah, blah. Votes for the guy who just says, I'm going to keep the same policy in place. I mean, the grandstanding there was truly off the charts, but that's pretty hilarious to witness. And again, going back to this question of the cooperation with Kathy Hochul and all that, it is worth noting that we did just get an exclusive this week from the New York Post shortly after the election saying that New York State Dems, other ones, are basically trying to revolt against Kathy Hochul and open up to the Zohran Mamdani idea of raising taxes, as primary threats obviously loom against many of them because this is what the progressives at least are threatening to do. So this is the civil war that I guess you're about to witness. So it reports that Mamdani wants, as you know, higher taxes on millionaires and corporations to generate $9 billion to fulfill his ambitious campaign promises. But as we talked about, it'll be up to Kathy Hochul and the state government whether these hikes ever become reality. Now, Hochul, who is up for re-election in 2026, has said that she does not favor the plan. But two influential state Democrats already appeared to consider the hikes on Wednesday, a day after Mamdani's win in the mayoral election. So the party civil war here is basically already underway. What the heck is this ad? What is going on? Oh. But anyway, so long as some of the new revenue would be applied to tax relief for working class New Yorkers, I'm very open to modest increases on millionaires, said State Senator James Skoufis from the Orange area from the Hudson Valley. He did not comment specifically on the proposed tax increase on corporations. So, they're kind of skeptical. But again, what's going on here? They're all scared of Mamdani. They're scared of the progressive primary challenges that potentially could come. And even if Mamdani ultimately stands down when it comes to, say, primarying Schumer or primarying Jeffries or even Hochul, I would venture to guess a lot of these statewide politicians are still fair game. He doesn't even have to get his hands dirty, right? Just quietly push some challengers in that direction. And even against Hochul, AOC could theoretically try to run for governor. I don't think that's what she's aiming for. I think she's probably trying to run against Schumer or run for president in 2028, but that's a possibility as well. So, keep an eye on all this stuff. Let's see what happens. But nonetheless, Senator Liz Krueger, another coward, but this one's from Manhattan, who chairs the Finance Committee in the State House and endorsed Mamdani, said she's keeping an open mind. New York State and New York City are both facing challenges in the coming years. I'm always open to exploring the best options for 20 million New Yorkers. I mean, that does sound like a pretty non-answer, but, interesting to keep in mind. Hochul is already under pressure from the liberal wing of the party, as you know, and Mamdani supporters to move left on this issue. As you may remember, when she spoke at a pre-election rally for Mamdani at Forest Hill Stadiums last month, his supporters chanted, "Tax the rich. Tax the rich." Now, another one here, Assemblyman Jennifer Rajkumar from Queens, who represents a heavily South Asian and Indo-Caribbean district, was non-committal on the mayor's tax agenda, but Mamdani did carry her district with 53% of the vote. So, this is all just something to watch. Who knows what's going to happen here? But, one person here is pointing out Mamdani won my district, but only 53% of the vote, even though my district is overwhelmingly Democratic. He needs to unify New Yorkers who are clearly divided. Here's where it gets interesting. A former top aide to Democrat Socialist Squad member, AOC, said that Mamdani and his team should threaten Democrats with primaries if they don't fall in line with his affordability agenda, aka raising the taxes, right? Quote, maybe if AOC should run for governor if Hochul doesn't do what needs to be done, said this guy right here, Corbin Trent. So yeah, we'll see what ends up happening in the end, but I think regardless, it's pretty fair to say that Kathy Hochul completely screwed herself over with this, right? Because you thought that if you endorse Mamdani, that would save you from the angry progressives. Clearly it didn't. Okay, they were angry at you even when you endorse. Now they're angry at you again. And even if you manage to fend off the primary challenge from Mamdani, basically says, look, you endorse me, it's fine, don't worry about it. We're not going to try to take you out. Okay, but guess what? The other 50% of the city and the more than 50% of the state definitely saw that you did endorse Mamdani. You know the campaign ads against you, whether it's Elise Stefanik or Curtis runs for governor or whatever, even if there's a moderate in the Democrat primary, who knows, they're totally going to use that against you in terms of you endorse Mamdani. You're the Mamdani Democrat. So you're basically now getting attacked from both sides as a result of this. And I would just like to remind everyone, what did it give you, Kathy Hochul? Because you endorsed Mamdani, and then you might remember, what did Mamdani do in response? He would not endorse you.
Mamdani also declined to endorse fellow Democrat Kathy Hochul for re-election on the debate stage after she endorsed the Queens legislator in his run to lead the nation's biggest city.
Who supports Kathy Hochul for re-election?
It's a decision that should be made after this general election in November.
Why don't you endorse her?
I appreciate it.
How about a shout out for Elise Stefanik to take out Kathy Hochul?
Yeah, and we will do a video soon covering the current issues that Kathy Hochul is facing in her re-election campaign, because they, of course, go pretty deep. She's already an unpopular governor before the Mamdani stuff, and now, well, that just multiplied all of her issues. But, of course, what is her likely Republican challenger, Elise Stefanik, saying in response? Degrading and humiliating. Jihadi and terrorist sympathizer Kami Mamdani's team threatened Kathy Hochul with the primary if she doesn't bend the knee and endorse him. Hochul quickly caved and now wears his defund the police anti-Semitic communist platform. New Yorkers know how politically weak Hochul is. Mamdani confirmed it last night by refusing to endorse her. One thing is clear, Kami Mamdani is the puppet master of Kathy Hochul, the worst governor in America. And who created this problem for herself? Who let the snake in? I think the poem is pretty fitting. It was Kathy Hochul. In fact, let's play that, because I think that perfectly summarizes many problems with Democrat politicians. But in this particular case, right? So you allowed the crazy progressives. You opened up to them. You said, okay, I'll endorse you. And how'd you expect that to end when you're saying you're not going to embrace their radical agenda, but you'll endorse? It's the snake poem.
On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. His pretty-colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. "Poor thing," she cried, "I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you." The border. "Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the vicious snake. She wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk and laid him by her fireside with some honey and some milk. She hurried home from work that night, and as soon as she arrived, she found that pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. She stroked his pretty skin again and kissed him and held him tight. But instead of saying thank you, that snake gave her a vicious bite. "I have saved you," cried the woman, "and you've bitten me, heavens, why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die." "Oh, shut up, silly woman," said the reptile with a grin. "You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in."
Yeah, so I don't know about you, but for me, that's exactly what comes to mind. And typically, Trump reads that poem and it's used as a metaphor for immigration, which is completely true and accurate. But again, I don't think it just applies to that end of liberal policies. It's everything, right? It's crime, for instance. Oh, let's let the repeat offender out of jail 10 freaking times. Or it's this issue with the progressives, right? Kathy Hochul, shut up, silly woman. You knew what was happening. You knew what was going to happen, okay? Now they're freaking pissed at you. And now you've created a million problems for yourself. And guess what? You took them in. Did they thank you for it? No, they're biting you now, okay? So, that said, guys, though, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.